A bloke once told me, when seeking advice, only take it from well-educated or well-experienced people in the field. This next bloke ticks both of them boxes. He's been at high performance level through his own athletics career in the race walk and is currently still there helping professional athletes deal with sports nutrition and dietary needs. Evan Lynch, what is the gig?
What is the gig? Thanks very much for having me on, Anthony. Delighted to be here.
No bother. Fair play to you. You got back onto me straight away.
Yeah, I'm a busy man. I think I might have mentioned it in the messages. I'm having baby number 3 in about 8 days' time. So it's like, feck it, if we don't get it recorded now, it'll just not happen. So here we are, Sunday evening, getting it done.
Fair play to you.
Yeah.
Evan, right, bring me through your athletics career, because that is what led you to your role that you're in now, your career.
Yeah, it was the inspiration for it. So I started race walking when I was 10 after reading a newspaper article about my dad. He did it internationally in the 1980s. Right? He had Irish singlets for it. You know, you see your dad in a newspaper, you think, that's kind of cool. I'd like to try this. So where we live in the countryside, and you can walk all the way around the house.
Yeah.
So we trained for the community games during laps of my house. It was about 50 metres all the way around. And first year, I think I got disqualified. Second, came back the year after and won.
Who's the club you're running for? Oh, yeah.
Clonmel. I was a Clonmel AC athlete.
Right.
That's how myself and Mr. Irish Hammer, Sean Tobin, we go way back.
Yeah.
We would have been like childhood friends, and we grew up together through the track scene. He stayed. I didn't manage to quite stay in it, but along the way I did have a few, I guess, high points, low points. But I suppose when I won that community games, it was the first source of positive regard that I ever had, where people openly came up to me and said, wow, that's great, or you're great. And that's really nice, because I hadn't heard that much, and I liked it. It's like, ooh, if I win races, people think I'm class.
Yeah.
So I just said, fuck this, I'm good at this.
Yeah.
I was crap at running. I was trying to be a runner before that, and I hated athletics. I absolutely hated it until I found race walking, because I was good at that.
Right.
I pretty much won everything from under 12 to junior, under 23, collegiate, all of that stuff pretty consistently every single year, indoor, outdoor.
I could see on the World Athletics profile, yeah.
Do I still have a profile there?
Yeah.
Wow, okay. I left the sport of race walking in 2016.
Yeah.
I got Reds in college.
Right.
First year of college, I did the opposite of what I advise all of my patients to do now, and I went on a ketogenic diet. No carbs, because my training partner told me it was a good idea.
I was listening to this on the Any Run Day podcast. So give us the scoop on that. So what you're training to be a race walker, some fella gives you bad diet advice.
And I was 19, so I was like...
what was the advice? Like, don't eat carbs here?
Yeah, so at the time, right, in fairness, in 2014, 15, 16, the genesis of a low carbohydrate approach for athletes was taking steam. And the idea is, if we can get an athlete really good at burning fat, they'll spare all of their glycogen. And if we can get them burning more fat at higher and higher intensities, they'll just never hit the wall.
Yeah.
It'll make them super endurance athletes.
And fat's more abundant, like the fat fuel is more abundant than carbs in the body.
Like you're relatively lean, I would say.
Yeah.
You'd still have enough fat cells on your body like to easily fill a 30,000 calorie bucket, even though you're really lean.
Yeah.
So I thought, as a 19-year-old, makes sense.
Yeah.
Mark is a Olympic athlete in his own right. He surely knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And I did that. That moment is where everything fell apart for me.
And you're 19 here?
19.
So what happens?
Managed for a couple of weeks. In hindsight, I know that male athletes are more resilient and robust to really bad fueling tactics.
Yeah.
And I'd say it took 3 months for me to disintegrate. I wasn't able to push my heart rate up. I was getting injured and sick a lot.
Were you monitoring the weight as it was coming down? Do you remember coming down from
I wasn't monitoring it, but I lost a lot. I just didn't notice or check it. I saw it in pictures, and in hindsight, in retrospect, I was looking, I was like, geez, that's not what I'm supposed to look like. I just thought it was a great idea. And all of the things that I experienced, like a 19-year-old with poor libido, You
Right.
know, like wasn't able to sleep. These are all signs and symptoms of that REDS, or relative energy deficiency. What would you call it? Umbrella of
Yeah.
symptoms. I had them. I had them all.
Yeah.
And then I got a real bad injury in my ankle joint, and I just never managed to shake it. And I remember watching the Rio Olympics maybe 2 years later on the telly, watching the walk. There's a few boys there that I would have competed against. When I went to college, that was my ambition, qualify for the Rio Olympics. So I'd been injured for maybe 2-3 years at this point, and every time I thought I was clear, I'd try and go and come back. It was just less and less successful. And athletics is great when it's going well,
Yeah.
but when it's not going well and it's going less and less well, it's really hard to keep going. So
Yeah.
I'd made a promise to myself as a teenager. Race walking is not mainstream.
Yeah. It's not.
It's fringe at best.
Because I had a boxer on here a little while ago,
Yeah.
and he talked about running, and he used to look at runners and be like, "What are they doing? Why are they going running?" And I had the same kind of view on the race walk until I met the lads who are in athletics, and they would talk about the race walk. Vinny Mulvey, did he go?
Yeah.
He was a race walker.
I think so.
He actually went, did he go to the Olympics for the race walk?
I'm not sure.
I
I
don't know,
don't
but the
think
lads
so.
mentioned him, and anyway, and he was at a high level, and they were talking about, and I was like, the race walk is obviously something.
You're basically a marathon runner or a half marathon runner. It's just the biomechanics are different. It's a lot harder than running.
This is other stuff I like. Calorie expenditure the same?
Similar. It's just, I suppose, the anatomical demands. Like you have to make your body move in a totally unnatural way.
Yeah.
There's a technical aspect to it. It's really hard to have the mental acuity to maintain a like technical aspect of race walking while you're shagged. Like it's real hard. It's an underappreciated sport, but I'd made a promise to myself, because I used to mock all the masters athletes because they're really slow, ungraceful. They weren't high performance, and I said, if I ever get to that stage, if I go past the age of 25 and it's not happening, gracefully step aside and move on.
Yeah.
So I made that decision when I was, how old was I? Maybe 21, 22.
Yeah.
I said, look, it's just not happening for me. And painfully, I decided, give up, leave it alone.
And the training around it, is it the same? You have intervals, you have threshold.
Yeah. Long. We call them long walks. So you go for your long run and be like, go for my long walk this weekend.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all the same. 2K reps. You do some speed work, you do some gym work, you do a lot of cross training, a lot of technical sessions as well, because of the technical demands of the sport. That wasn't my strong suit. I wasn't technically very good, but physiologically I was really strong, and like physically I was very strong compared to guys I would have competed with. And look, everyone who does sports wants to be an Olympian. I had been saying it since I was in 4th class, and that first community games, I thought this is a great thing to aim for. And when it didn't work out and I left sports, geez, it was like dying.
Yeah.
To be honest, I had made all of my identity about that.
Yeah, I know. I can share the feeling on that.
And now, when I left it and I was thinking, well, what am I going to do with my life now? What else am I interested in? I was looking around. I was like, food, I guess.
Right.
I like food.
Yeah.
And I set up my business. I called it, I think, Evan Lynch Nutrition and Health. There was a Facebook page.
Fitno.
Yeah. That was the next.
So then you go into the education then, right?
Yeah.
So you mentioned you were in college when the career kind of started to fall apart.
Yeah.
What are you studying then?
Food science and health.
Food science and health. You're studying then.
Yeah, I was in UL. It was funny actually. I picked UL because they offered me a sports scholarship.
Yeah.
And I didn't end up getting the scholarship. I missed it. I missed qualifying for the European Junior or the World Junior Championships. They were in Eugene that year. This is the 10K. It was the longest event in the track, or the whole kind of calendar for the event. I think I missed it by like 4 seconds.
Right.
The qualifying time. I had a last ditch effort. I went to Belgium after just doing my leaving cert, flew out. I think I needed to walk like 44 flat. I walked 44.04. If I sneezed, like that was the difference.
Yeah.
And then UL said no to my scholarship, but stupidly I'd put 2 UL courses down, nothing else on my CAO. I wanted to be a physiotherapist initially.
Right.
And I'd only put that down, and my mum begged me, look, just put something else in case you don't get the points.
Yeah.
See, I'm very arrogant, so I said, I get the points.
Yeah.
It was like 560 odd points, and I got like 540.
Right.
So nothing was going well,
Yeah.
and I hated.
540 isn't bad. I wouldn't say that's not going well, but
No, it was
Yeah.
it's good, but
Yeah.
physio was very in demand at the time.
Yeah.
So
Still.
no scholarship, no physiotherapy. I was doing a course that it said food on it, so I was like, fuck it, put it down.
Yeah.
She's like, no interest in it. How I ended up being a dietitian was it was the most interesting career option that you could do with a food science degree.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'd be working in a lab in like Glanbia or Pepsi Max or something like that. I did that on my work placement and I hated every second of it.
Yeah.
So I had no choice but to become a dietitian then.
You have a degree in sports science, do you?
I have a degree in food science and health
Yeah.
from UL. I then went to the University of Malta to study dietetics.
Yeah, I was reading this, right?
So I speak medical Maltese,
Right.
which is not useful in Ireland.
Yeah.
And then I did a master's degree in sports and exercise nutrition specifically.
Right.
And I've just started a PhD looking at body image in athletes.
Okay.
So that's kind of the trajectory to date. I'm 10 years in college as we speak.
Yeah. Yeah, you seem like a guy who's well about education.
Yeah.
So then you start the career then.
Yes.
And it's a big career in demand now, yeah?
It seems to be, yeah.
It definitely is. Everything is nutrition, especially with everything that I look at now. I'm big interested in sports nutrition.
Yeah.
So I came into endurance sport from weightlifting, bodybuilding, yeah, let's
Okay.
say. I was like not on the stage in a G-string, but I was getting in mad nick for holidays and do you know what I mean? And like training every day and calorie counting, and I just wanted to be peeled.
Yeah.
And it was all a lot of brown soil stuff, so I have a big interest in it. I kind of carried that into endurance sport, right?
Yeah.
So I want to perform as good as I can athletically, right?
Yeah.
But I also want the body to look the job.
Mm-hmm.
So like I have this like, what would you call it? Conflict of interests. Do you know what I mean? Like I like my body to look a certain way, but I learned firsthand the importance of calorie intake. So the stress factor that I got, yeah. I'll give you the lowdown on the how that, what do you call it, series of events that led into that. Right?
Okay.
So I was jumped into a marathon, yeah.
You just jumped into a marathon.
I jumped in. I was doing a bit of running, done a load of triathlon, done a load of running, yeah.
Yeah.
Met Gary O'Hanlon. Do you know Gary?
I do, yeah.
So I met Gary. Now Gary's an anomaly, and I was told don't ever try and train like Gary because there's only one Gary.
Yes.
And I learned that. So Gary said, you come into this marathon in 16 weeks. So I jumped on and we trained for it, right? I done a marathon 4 weeks out in training. So that was one I put on the board. Then 4 weeks later we go to Seville, I bang one out, right? We come back, I don't really take any downtime. I go straight back into, like I took a week off I think, straight back into 30k hill runs, back into hard training. Then I managed to get myself in with the Dublin Track Club, right? And around that time, when I am fully switched on and being an athlete, yeah, not that I'm an athlete, like I'm a wannabe athlete, yeah, but I live the life of it.
Yeah.
So when I'm fully switched on, I'm ticking all boxes and I'm looking after nutrition and everything else. But when I'm not fully switched on, I'll be like, it's time to let the hair down a little bit. Do you know what I mean? In a couple of weeks, I'll tighten the discipline and I'll be fully tuned in. The sleep will be on, the nutrition will be on. Yeah. So I was in a window there where I was probably not taking in the calories that I should have been taking in.
Mm-hmm.
I get onto the track, I last 3 weeks with the lads, and then boom, stress factor happens, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not 100% sure it was the accumulation of the load, but then I dove into everything after and found out, right? So got the stress fracture, got the MRI, got a DEXA scan, yeah?
Yeah.
Osteopenia showed up.
You have osteopenia?
Yeah.
Oh.
Right?
Okay.
And the T-score was 1.5. Off of memory.
Mine's 1.5.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I was like, what is this now? Do you know what I mean? I thought it was a bomb-proof operator. I thought I was made of steel. Do you know what I mean? Turns out you're not.
Yeah.
So then it was like, right, had to dive into that's where that milk story came from. I was going to sourcing the purest milk I could get.
Yeah.
And then I got put onto like a rheumatologist and I had to find out about calcium intake. So what can you tell me there? Because when I got put onto the rheumatologist, right?
Yeah.
I showed up to her. She didn't give me any calcium supplements or anything. She said, just get it from yogurt, cheese, which I actually have a little bit of high cholesterol, so it didn't make sense for it to offer me cheese, and milk.
Okay.
And I was like, right, didn't really feel like I got mad bang for a buck there. Advice.
Well, here's a fact, and then I'll get into what some observations.
What do you think of all of that? Because that was the biggest, what would you call it, spanner in the works that I've went through.
Yeah, I bet.
Athletically.
To be fair, doctors, even medical consultants, have roughly 8 hours of nutritional training in their career. That's it. They don't necessarily have an appreciation or understanding of that. That's not their fault. That's why
the course.
That's why dietitians exist.
Yeah.
I know fuck all about medicine. If you came to me for advice on medicine, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Eat some cheese.
Yeah.
You know? So there's that. So I wouldn't fault her for not having, say, dietetics level advice. One thing that I found interesting, you mentioned that you felt conflicted between sports nutrition advice and wanting to have a good body composition.
Yeah.
That's probably where it all went wrong, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to assume, you can tell me if I'm wrong. I really hope I'm right, or I'm going to look like an awful bollocks.
Go for it, go on.
A lot of people who, say, struggle to engage with sports nutrition do so because they fear over fueling, because they assume, well, if I eat all this carbs, like this bollocks is telling me I need 400 grams of carbs, that's like 14 spuds. If I do that, I'm going to look like a tennis ball. So most people don't engage because they fear, well, if I follow his advice, my body composition is going to be a bit meh. Right? Is that fair?
There's a certain element, like, I can't say I would be looking at food, like, I don't look at food like, oh, that's going to make me fat, because I would go to McDonald's and get 2 meals, like, I am fat at heart, you know what I mean? I would eat the gaff down, like, no mess.
Okay.
I can put food away, and I'm greedy, let's say.
Okay, well, that actually, that can help with sports and all that. Can I ask, you mentioned earlier on that you sometimes might decide to tighten the screw on your nutrition. Yeah. What does that mean for you? So
what that means for me is like, so I was listening to you the other day when you were talking about something, you were like, eating the same meals every day is a borderline, like it's borderline food. What did you call it?
It's a bit restrictive.
It's a bit restrictive, right?
Yeah.
But to me, it's just down to convenience. Like I'm flat out day to day, and I don't cook for pleasure. I cook for fuel. I need carbs, protein for recovery. Mm-hmm. I'm not a big veg eater, so I'm trying to get on top of that now. But like that, I would keep that to a minimal as well, right? So that's what that looks like for me. It's like tighten the screw up. It's time to be like switch on. I'd have the rice. Like I'd have like, let's say 2 main meals I'd have a day. It'd be like 100 grams of rice, 70 grams of carbs in each of them. I'd have that twice a day. Mm-hmm. And I'd have like a source of protein, which would be a steak, salmon, chicken. Mm-hmm. That'd be like, I'd have 2 lunch boxes of that out in the car. Mm-hmm. Like I would have a good quality breakfast, and I'd probably have a good quality, let's say evening meal, be something like eggs based or something, 4 eggs or 3 eggs or something. So that's what that's like to me. But when I'm not fully, not when I don't have the screw fully tightened, it's like just going with the flow.
Gotcha. So for you,
that's where I was in that space when that stress fracture happened.
Okay. So for you, I think you said turning the screw on is trying to eat more consistently and maybe focusing on protein. There's a lot of protein there by the sounds of it, and making sure there's a carb source with
being fully switched on, even to sleep, even getting into bed, putting the phone on the lock and not even messing with it for 20 minutes before you go to sleep. It's really being dialed in, and you can't be like that all the time.
Definitely
you go off the rockers, you know what I mean? It's a hard thing. Like, I do it in bursts. I did do it for that marathon.
Okay.
I was not 16 weeks, but I did do 8 weeks like a monk nearly. Not like a monk, I just put everything on the back burner, and the marathon was the sole focus, and I was switched on for it.
So a couple of things. I did my master's thesis on this, right? And we looked at nutrition knowledge in athletes. What do you think an athlete scores on average if you quiz them on nutrition? And this is, in our cohort, we had Olympians.
I'd say it's low.
How low do you think? Out of 100%?
Judging for what I know, because when I met legit athletes, I've asked them, and they don't give, I'm expecting them to know everything, and it's just like, bit of spuds. And I'm like, what? Do you know what I mean? I'd be like, what are you eating? Like what secrets have you got? And it's like, bit of spuds, bit of chicken.
Yeah. It's generally less than 50%.
Yeah.
They'll score about a D minus, right?
Right.
So that's the first thing.
Yeah.
So I always assume when an athlete says, and you are an athlete, whether you identify as one or not, an athlete is someone who exercises frequently. From a medical perspective, like if I was evaluating you, I would consider you an athlete because of all the stuff you do. If I didn't do that and I didn't look at you in that light, I would never put the same onus on how important it is to eat regularly, or to have a really high carb content, or to make sure that your protein intake isn't too high, that it's counterproductive, which may be the case.
Yeah.
No way. So when athletes say, I'm turning the screw on, generally what they mean is I'm eating clean and I've cut out all the rubbish. That's a thing athletes do. And I remember someone said it to me when I was in the peak of my career. They saw me eating a dairy milk, and they said, and I didn't really know this person, they said, hey, you shouldn't do that. And I went, fuck it, you're right. And then I didn't eat chocolate for years and I felt conflicted about it. Do you know how much scientific research there is on whether...
I know, because I've listened to you.
Oh, yeah.
So I know. So like exactly what you're on about there, right?
Yeah.
When I would be strict, I would cut out the 3 biscuits of milk before I go to bed.
Yeah.
And it's not that a case that like... It's not a case... Yeah, it's a mad weird one, innit? It's like I feel I'm being more of an athlete if I don't have the 3 biscuits and or whatever.
Culturally you are. Scientifically it doesn't make sense, because you can always do with the fuel, and 3 biscuits and some milk before bed, particularly if you've osteopenia, is 200 milligrams of calcium and probably 50 grams of carbs. I'm like, perfect.
Yeah.
You know, maybe not healthy, but you're pretty healthy otherwise from what I've gathered so far. So
now, that would be on top of, so like I would definitely be eating before bed, but that would be on top of the like, let's say 3 eggs, Parmesan cheese, bit of spinach.
Yeah, I think that's okay. From what I hear when you're switched on, I'm not going to ask you your weight, but
I'll tell you what, 65.3 this morning.
65.
That's another thing.
Okay.
I would stand on the scales every day, but not from a thing of like, I'm trying to like, I'm used to it. It's at the end of the bed. I do it.
Okay.
I used to weigh myself a lot when I was boxing.
Yeah.
So I kind of carried the habit.
Well, based on that, right, from what you're telling me, your carbohydrate requirements in any given day, you're talking like ballpark off the top of my head, you'd be anywhere from about 340 to maybe 460, 70 grams of carbs a day.
Requirements.
Yeah. So you having 70 grams at 2 main meals, like it's way undershooting it. Your evening meal would have had no carbs in it. I also didn't hear you reference any snacks. So I'm going to 2 facts for you.
Now, sorry.
Yeah.
Because like, so this will happen a lot here, because I'll be throwing bits back into it.
Yeah.
So let's say in the morning I have a porridge breakfast every morning, yeah?
Okay.
540 calories in it.
Okay.
60 grams of oats.
Yeah.
70 grams of blueberries, 70 grams of raspberries. It's mixed with water, peanut butter, and a scoop of protein.
Yeah.
It's a decent old breakfast.
40 grams of carbs, maybe 50 max. It's a bit low.
Even in the fruit then?
Yeah, berries don't have that much stuff in them.
Yeah, right. So you're talking what, they're 50 grams of carbs?
Ballpark, I'd say 50, maximum 60.
So let's say 60 there, right? Then I'm going to training then, yeah? And I would usually, the lads would be obvious, because I'm always taking gels if I have them there.
Yeah.
And it is a game of the more calories you consume, the less your body has to recover, yeah? Am I right in saying that?
Yeah,
it speeds up the recovery process.
Carbs, I would say, are the key thing.
Yeah, so I'm always taking in gels before, or like, and the lads be like, you don't need them bleeding gels, you're always on the gels and all. And I'm like, I get stick over it. But even things like I would use Haribo, because it's cheap, it's convenient, it's right there, I can get them in.
Yeah.
So I would use this a lot before training. And then even during training and after, I would be getting the sugar in.
Mm-hmm.
But like, so there's a load of grey area with nutrition for me.
Okay.
I'm right in using that stuff, yeah?
Walk me through the timing. So what time do you have breakfast and what time do you train?
Let's say breakfast at 7:30.
And what time do you train?
Start warming up at 10 o'clock. Be definitely training for 11.
Okay. Do you have anything between those two?
I would probably have the jellies or the gel, or about, let's say I get there at 10, I'd neck a handful of jellies or a gel, or I would drink like a precision hydration or a SIS, a fuel mix of something.
Mm-hmm.
I would have like a portion of that.
Cool.
And then it'd be into training then. And then during training, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
After training, it's grand now because I have the tub in the bag. I bought the Connecticut recovery stuff. It's 2-to-1 protein to carbs.
Mm-hmm.
I have that there. That's handy and ready to go. But even prior to having that, I would have always used things like I'd make a homemade shake, like 300 ml of orange juice, 300 ml of apple juice, a banana.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about 80 grams of carbs there, is it?
Yeah.
It's about that.
Yeah.
And that'd be straight after.
I would rate that above the powder you have.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at 65.3 kilos, if running is your main gig, you're looking at somewhere like it's about 80 to 90 grams of protein a day, maximum 100.
I'm definitely getting 100.
You're definitely getting way more than 100.
I'm definitely getting way more than 100.
Most athletes way overdo it on protein and underdo it on carbs. And that's actually one of the risk factors for a stress fracture. It's having not a high enough carb intake, specifically around when you exercise.
Yeah.
So if I was to jig things up from what you've said so far, I would be changing your breakfast. I might be putting 80 grams of oats in there. I'd be destroying it in honey, leaving the peanut butter out.
Yeah.
And I would be making it with milk for your bones, probably fortified milk. And that'll give you about 80 to 90 grams of carbs in the bowl.
Yeah.
Before training, defo on the gels or the Haribos or bananas, something easy, light and sugary, about 30 minutes beforehand. Solid. Definitely do that. Focusing on carbs after training. So for endurance work, it's different, say, if you were still kind of a gym rat and not necessarily doing all the running and all that, you wouldn't need to care as much about your glycogen because you're not going to deplete it as much.
Yeah.
When you train with the boys in Dublin Track Club, your glycogen is just good luck and thanks. Your main kind of worry as an athlete, if you train more than 3 or 4 times a week, the big challenge is, well, how can I fill this tank up like instantly or as quick as possible? Because however full or not that glycogen tank is, that can serve as a proxy for how tired you feel,
Yeah.
how ready you are to train, how well you can recover. It also influences other things like chronically low levels of glycogen, again, risk factor for bone turnover, iron levels, libido, all those things, even sleep quality.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I'm not going to name brands here, but protein focused recovery for the vast majority of endurance athletes is not necessarily relevant. If you wanted the best of both worlds, chocolate milk.
Yeah.
It has all the sugar in it, but it has enough protein for you to have your muscles still be like,
Yeah.
the way they are. So that's what I would change so far.
Right, so that brings us up to around training then, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So that's like straight after training. So far I have a good understanding, yeah? And I'm looking after the body. So then let's say, right, so the protein I'm overshooting. Defo. I'm probably like, I would use my fitness pal, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Now I've used it so much over the years that I kind of have a good understanding of what I'm taking in. I don't lodge everything every day, but I've done it regularly enough that I know what a meal is to me. I know I've weighed out meals. So like me tuna bagel, I know that's about 600 calories just from doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing with the MyFitnessPal, and this is another thing, the calorie expenditure, yeah? You said something like you think I'm going to do all this training for free.
Mm.
On MyFitnessPal, when you have 2,500 calories a day and you've burnt 2,500, I'm now on a deficit of 5,000.
MyFitnessPal is in no way accurate.
Right.
It's just not. For one, there's issues with, say, the predictive equations. Like any predictive equation, if I have a patient lodged up in front of me, I'll often use something like the Henry equation to guesstimate their basal metabolic rate, and I can ask them questions and maybe look at their Garmin or whatever, or if they've done a VO2 max test, look at the numbers on that to try and work out, well, how much is this person burning?
Yeah.
How much is this person burning on any given day? When you look at athletes, predictive equations generally underestimate because we're more heavily muscled than non-athletes, and muscle is metabolically much more demanding. So the numbers you get on MyFitnessPal, totally arbitrary. And if you're going by them, you're probably going wrong. Your best bet would be to use the Mifflin-Sanjor equation to work out your basal metabolic rate. You can then use physical activity values, PAL values. They range from 1.4 to I think 2.2. And basically if you're sedentary or if you sit in your arse all day, you multiply that BMR by 1.4. If you take a couple of thousand steps, maybe 1.6. A labourer will be about a 2. So the more active your job is, or the more active your day outside of exercise, you're multiplying that BMR by that.
Yeah.
Then on top of that, to factor in training, look at your Garmin, look at your power meter, look at your whatever thing you wear while you train, because it'll give you a rough estimate as to how much you burn in training.
Yeah.
That's what you add on top. MyFitnessPal cannot do that.
No.
So the reason I don't generally use tracking calories with people is because MyFitnessPal is not fit for purpose for someone whose energy requirements are so dynamic on a day-to-day basis. It couldn't possibly work out for them unless they are able to do that math and skilled enough to do so every single day. The metabolic equation as well, MyFitnessPal can't do that. Also, this comes up, so I'm kind of 50-50 sports and medical, and I work with lots of weight loss patients. Statistically speaking, people are shocking at tracking their calories. The average discrepancy is 600 to 1,000 calories a day.
Yeah.
So if someone tracks their calories and they tell me, oh, I'm this, I just assume they're wrong anyway.
Yeah.
So for the average person, and I have to play averages when we look at statistics, and I have a patient sitting in front of me, I have to assume what they're telling me is wrong. But they're not wrong on purpose. They're just wrong because tracking your calories and monitoring your dietary behavior is difficult, because dieting is not as transactional or prescriptive as training. It's emotive, it's behavioral, it's environmental. We have cognitive blind spots. We lie to ourselves. Our motivation for tracking can even be a factor in how accurate we are. For example, someone who's trying to gain weight overestimates, or other way around, someone who's trying to gain weight underestimates how much they eat. We have to cut this bit. I got it wrong.
Yeah, he'll edit it. Don't worry about that. He'll edit it.
Someone who's trying to gain weight will overestimate how much they eat. Someone who's trying to lose weight will underestimate how much they eat.
Yeah.
If they're assessing it visually.
Yeah.
Because I guess their stick is, I can't lose weight, I don't understand it. That's easier as a pill to swallow than I just eat too much. And what can happen is that between kind of cognitive blind spots, bit of dissonance, kind of lying to ourselves as well, we distort what we see and think.
Yeah.
And that reflects in, like, I had like a 120 kilo patient last week telling me she's exercising for an hour a day and eating 1,200 calories only. And she fucking expects me to believe that.
That's heavy.
No. I don't ever think that someone is lying to me because they're trying to deceive me.
Yeah.
I don't even think this patient thought or felt like or even knew she was lying to me. To her, it's a genuine mystery. She takes these numbers and looks at it and it's confusing.
Yeah.
But that's where that explanation is. It's like, well, look, tracking is hard. We're bad at it. Just keep a written food diary for me, and let's see where we're at, and let's focus on behaviors and not so much numbers, because they're far easier to keep tabs of, and we can relate to that much easier. That was a very irrelevant side tangent.
Yeah, but yeah. So for athletes, then where do you send them? And you're like, right, you're burning this many calories. If you don't put this back in, you are gonna be susceptible to REDs, stress fractures.
Yeah.
Because the thought of another stress fracture kind of haunts me a little bit. Every now and again I get a little bit of a tightness in the bum cheek, and I'm like, is this coming back?
It's back.
I'd be ringing Hugh, I'd be like, Hugh, and he'd be like, you're all right, relax.
Yeah.
So like, what do you think daily calorie intake for me should look like?
I have no idea. It's also not something I would focus on when we're talking. If you were a patient of mine, it wouldn't be where the conversation would go. I tend to focus on carbs.
Yeah.
Grams of carbs. That's a much easier game to play, and that's much more relevant. So we'll take you as you are, for example. Let's say right now, stress fracture, you're landing into me. I know fuck all about you. I hope I can swear, by the way.
Yeah.
It can bleep me out. It's the Clonmel in me.
Yeah. I get in trouble for it as well, but sorry.
The focus points would be, okay, add maybe 600 to 1,000 calories to your day. Yeah. We don't need to track to add that to your diet. If I wanted you to add 600 to 1,000 calories to your day, I would ask you to maybe stick in an extra bagel with your breakfast. I would ask you to make a smoothie, maybe put some peanut butter in it, maybe some whey as a snack during the day, throw some olive oil on your dinner. Job done.
Yeah.
I would focus on calcium intake with you.
Right.
With a stress fracture, you need about 12 to 1,500 milligrams of calcium a day. That fortified milk has about 120 mgs per 100 mils. Yogurt and cheese about 200 milligrams per serving. Leafy greens, tofu, pulses, beans, anywhere from 200 to 1,000 milligrams per serving. They can actually be really helpful. Fortified cereals are good as well.
So tell me, see the
Yeah.
spinach, yeah? Remember I said there was a thing about the spinach?
Yeah.
Everything, like you must get this a lot. I read this somewhere or I heard this somewhere. So I heard too much spinach, yeah, can solidify a calcium, stop absorption.
It has a high oxalate content in it, which it's more so relevant for iron, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Now
I'm not messing. Like I said, I'm not a big veg eater, so I have me go-tos. I would eat spinach on the regular, yeah.
Okay.
So I'd buy like the frozen spinach and I'd boil it in a pot. But I would have weighed it over the years. But by 4 cubes of it, it's 150 grams because it comes in little cubes.
Yeah.
So I would eat a bowl of that every single day. Let's say it would be 300 days over a year for over 10 years.
That's fine. I don't think that's going to do anything to you.
And then when I heard that, I was like, am I at the being? Is that why I have osteopenia? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. The osteopenia, it can happen if, like, on a long-term basis, you're not meeting your calcium requirements, or you generally don't eat enough carbohydrates to match your demands. That's the most likely explanation, I would say.
The rheumatologist did say also, I'm a small person. Like she said, and then the boxing over the years, like them weight cuts were not like.
Yeah.
Like they were bro science. Talk about bro science. That's what they were.
I think that's where some of the damage might have happened.
And she said that could have been a factor there. You probably never reached the full bone density.
Yeah. How old are you?
33.
You've gone past it, unfortunately. For anyone listening, look at all the.
Is it reversible?
Up to the age of 30, definitely. So we reach peak bone mass by the time we're 30.
Right.
If in your kind of formative years, anything up until the age of 30 for bone health, you experienced frequent, stark kind of energy deprivation or carb restriction, which probably goes hand in hand with combat sports. When we look at, say, bone turnover markers, there's 2 of them, CTX1 and P1NP. They basically regulate if you're building or breaking bone and how quickly it's happening.
Right.
If you put an athlete into, say, energy restriction to where you're weight cutting, you start breaking down bone like it's nobody's business. It's almost instantaneous. So imagine, like, retrospectively, were you always eating, like, say, 5 to 7 grams per kg of carbs for how active you were? Were you even near that?
Never.
Were you eating every 3 hours or so? Did you have the carb hits around training? Were you having 5 portions of dairy or equivalent a day until the age of 19? Like, all of those things are massive factors. Were you doing fasted training? That would be a big factor.
Fasted training.
Those would all have.
That was something I was doing around the stress factor. No, it was just getting up in the morning, going out and doing me easy runs.
Oops.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's what I was doing a couple of times.
That is an aspect of, it's a risk factor for that. It's a dietary risk factor for that. So, if I'd got my hands on you maybe 10 years ago, if you were 23 now and you were one of my patients, and I'd be telling you, look, fuck it, you have osteopenia, you have 7 years of a shot clock that we can really make some progress here. Let's do it. It would be no more fasted training. You want your sugary carbs around training. Mm-hmm. High carb at every meal, at least your weight in grams of carbs at each meal.
Train your weight in grams of carbs every meal.
So ballpark, round it up, at least 70 grams of carbs in a meal for you. Probably more if you're training. And you need to be getting a lot of it in, having something before you go to bed. Those would be the central tenets of the sports nutrition approach we would take anyway, but they also happen to protect bone health.
Yeah.
So that's probably where we would have gone with that. And people think athletes are just automatically healthy. A lot of my athletic patients or my sports patients are athletes who are at top of their game.
Yeah.
But if you could see their insides, like, or their bones or their mental health, they're not immune to problems,
Yeah. So then around the sports nutrition, because I have a lot of mates who would like the information of you.
Okay.
And we're at the covering that there because I coach people as well.
Okay.
So I'm trying to tell them and drill it into them. This is before, during, after. Quick carbs, quick sugar. Yeah.
Pretty much.
Everybody's on the Cocoa Pops. Everybody's like, all the bodybuilders are like, get the Cocoa Pops in.
Yeah.
Like, that's not practical for us at the side of a track. Get out a bleeding bowl. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A spoon of Cocoa Pops. So that shake I gave you there, orange juice, apple juice, a banana straight after.
Yeah,
You're boxed off then to get home and get a good meal into you.
exactly. Yeah, that works. Other kind of portable things would be like medjool dates, bananas, square bars are pretty good. Toast, white toast with jam or a bagel with jam is pretty class as well. Sports drinks, gels, chews, that kind of stuff. Very repetitive, but it's all that kind of stuff. Maybe Haribo's if it's a...
And then the protein intake, about what, 1.5, 1.7 grams per kilo?
For endurance athletes, 1.2 to 1.4.
Right.
If you're injured, it goes up to 2.2 to actively repair kind of damaged tissue.
Yeah.
For power athletes, kind of sprint or middle distance or field events, it's about 1.6 to 1.8.
Right.
Muscle protein synthesis, in terms of, say, a dose-response relationship, you get an increase in muscle protein synthesis with protein intake all the way up to 1.6 grams per kg body weight. Going higher than that doesn't help you build more or bigger muscles.
Gives you gastro problems, does it?
Could do.
Yeah.
Could do. In many cases, what happens is we're told we need more protein. And all the endurance athletes, they'll say, like you mentioned there, you'd have eggs and I think Parmesan and spinach.
Yeah.
The evening time. Great. Unless you're doing huge miles, in which case there's no carbs in that. There's no fuel for the tank there.
Yeah.
So it's an example of when the protein focus is present, that can often come at the cost and expense of not getting enough carbs in the door.
Yeah.
And then that's generally where all the other issues start to creep in, like stress fractures, iron deficiency, sleep issues, libido problems, like that over time, like that, those things can creep in as a result of that.
Right, I have a list of supplements that I do use.
Okay.
And ones that I have tried to do a bit of research on, I might get into. Right?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm going to go through them.
Yeah.
Caffeine.
Big fan. I'm going to round you up to 70 kilos. If you wanted to get a sports enhancing effect, you would do well to get anywhere from 210 to about 350, 360 milligrams of caffeine before an event. An espresso shot is 80 milligrams of caffeine. So 2 double espressos in a 2-hour period before an important race. Caffeine job is done.
I would drink a lot of coffee.
Mm-hmm.
This is another thing. Does the caffeine block the absorption of my vitamins?
Iron. So
Iron.
it's
only
not
iron.
Mostly iron.
It's like me not taking me vitamin D and me omega around me coffee in the morning. That's just
It's fine.
grand.
It's fine. It's not even coffee. It's tannins in coffee. It's the thing that makes coffee brown. So tea also does the same thing.
Right.
Now, what you can do and what you should do if you're taking iron, and maybe you don't need to be taking iron. If you're...
Look at this in a second.
Okay. Oh, is that a...
Bam.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. If you take 500 milligrams of vitamin C, so one of those fizzy tablets with iron, you'll absorb it even if you wash the tablet itself down with coffee.
Yeah.
That's enough of an acidic environment all by itself to overcome any, dietary inhibition.
Yeah.
So that's what I would do.
I've used the caffeine gels. Like I've used the 200 milligram gels, and I do enjoy the buzz off caffeine. I used a lot of it during my marathon.
Yeah.
I probably had about 90. Had 300, just under 300 grams in the marathon. And the marathon went well. Pulled it off.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy the effect of what caffeine has while I'm running hard.
It does a couple of things. So like at rest, if you're not running, it raises brain dopamine levels. I know we talked off camera, I mentioned I had ADHD.
Yeah.
Caffeine was the original treatment for ADHD, because ADHD is, I have basically no dopamine in my brain.
Right.
I'm basically excruciatingly bored all the time.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
People with ADHD tend to love caffeine because it addresses the issue. We just don't know it. We're just drawn to it.
No way.
Yeah, that's besides the point. But while you're running, why it's helpful is people think coffee gives me energy. It doesn't. It has nothing energetic in it. There's no calories in it, like.
Yeah.
But it blocks what are called ADP. Yeah, ADP receptors in your brain.
Yeah.
Adenosine receptors. When they get bound with adenosine, we start to feel more and more tired. So if you kind of looked at your brain, maybe when you wake up first thing in the morning, all those adenosine receptors are empty. Throughout the day, they fill up and you get what's called a sleep debt or sleep pressure. You get tired. Caffeine basically slots in that and prevents that binding. So it doesn't make you not tired. It just makes you feel not tired,
Yeah.
which is different.
Yeah.
But with that kind of trickery of your central nervous system, you do see an improved work rate, and it's worth about 2 to 3% of a finish time for endurance athletes in terms of an improvement, because it has that anti-fatigue effect.
Yeah.
So that it's kind of
I'd be trying to tell the younger, like, not that trying to, I'd be telling the lads are serious operators, and I'd be thinking, you should probably try a bit of caffeine, you might get a bit more out of yourself, and they're like, nah, wouldn't try it. I'm like, I'm telling you.
a lot of athletes, particularly if you're talking about Dublin Track Club lads, like those are guys that are liable to be drug tested. They have to be unbelievably careful. Like the last time that I had to know about this, you couldn't have something like Lemsip Max if you're a drug tested
Yeah, I heard
athlete
about
because
this
of
as well.
pseudoephedrine,
I
for
heard
example.
about that the other day. They actually only said that to me the other day.
Yeah.
So they would all be using I've seen them all. They all use the Informed Sport
They have
brands.
to.
They do, yeah.
If I have an
And that's
athlete,
even trickled onto me.
well, it's good. Like, I mean, I'm not less careful, but it's super important with someone who is going to be drug tested. There can be no messing around
Yeah,
there.
of course.
But yeah, the other reasons for informed sport usage, Sport Ireland had released stats, and there is actually a frightening number of things you can buy on the shelf in Europe that are actually tainted with anabolic or amphetamine derivatives.
Yeah.
So just from a health perspective, like, I mean, you don't want to go think you're getting your chamomile tea in the evening and be taking amphetamines. Like, it's the opposite of what you're going for. But you had a little book there.
No, I'm going to get out in a minute. We're going through this list.
Okay.
Creatine. I use this now.
Creatine, yeah, class.
What is it doing for me as an endurance athlete?
As an endurance athlete, probably what it does is it makes you better at doing hard training.
Yeah.
So creatine raises phosphocreatine levels in your bloodstream. So if you're doing any kind of gym work, plyometric work, any kind of bit of sprinting, hill sprinting, anything short and sharp or power based, it makes you better at doing that and recovering from that.
Right.
So over, say, the course of a year, you get better in terms of your physical strength, power, speed.
I used to use it when I was weightlifting, and you could definitely see the effects of it.
You would, for sure. How it works with athletes is it just makes you stronger, and that tends to translate into your biomechanics and your, I guess, proneness to injuries. Yeah. Cool side effects of creatine is it can make you better at carb loading. You can hold on to a bit more carbs if you're carb loading. It also has some cognitive protective effects if you're in a bit of a sleep debt or you're tired, and it can improve innate immunity. So there's some aspects to that.
And Mort, earlier on when you said what is turning the dial, it would be all that, being on top of me supplements, being like all of that is part of the picture. Beta aniline.
Big fan of beta alanine. It's a lactic acid buffer.
Buffer.
Do you get the face tingles when you take it?
I haven't used it. I'm sizing it up.
What kind of distances do you hope to compete at or do?
3K in a few weeks.
Very relevant for
5K.
Yeah.
And then I will progress then through them, whatever's going on, but eventually back to the marathon in, don't know, next year maybe.
Beta alanine is more so relevant for events that are very kind of heavily lactate based, like middle distance. 400 meters plus, beta alanine really helps.
Okay.
So it's a lactic acid buffer. It raises levels of bicarbonate in your body, so that kind of stops lactic acid rising to a level where it shuts down muscular function, I suppose, and your aerobic system. 5 to 6 grams a day, 5 to 6 weeks before an event. Side note, if you do take beta alanine, it can make your face tingle. I had a patient before, he took it and he thought he was having a stroke.
Yeah.
And he went to A&E and he's fine, and he rang me and he's like, I had not told him about the paresthesia, that symptom. To make a point of telling everyone now, because he wasn't happy.
Yeah.
He was a bit annoyed that he thought he was having a stroke.
And then sodium bicarb, same.
Sodium bicarb is slightly different, so they're kind of in the same family. Sodium bicarb is baking soda.
Yeah.
Can do the same thing.
Is this the thing that Martin brought out, the new?
It is the bicarb system.
Yeah.
Yeah. That stuff is
Pricey.
generally pricey, yeah. But if you try and do the at-home version with baking soda, there's a really solid chance you'll vomit a lot.
Yeah.
That's the side effect to it. That's why I would favour beta alanine as a lactic acid buffer over, say, baking soda or the bicarb system, because it's 80 quid for like 4 servings, and do you know what I mean? There's
close to your event, you wouldn't be
May-
using it all the time, but close to the event.
Maybe if I have a client from D4, maybe
Yeah.
I'll recommend it, but not anyone else, generally speaking.
Magnesium.
Yeah, magnesium is a good one.
So when I was doing when I really started getting into the marathons, I said that 16 week, I was getting like tightness and things. And a bloke that I was training with, he was like, what vitamins are you taking? I wasn't taking that. And he put me on, did you ever hear of the animal stack? Did you ever hear of that?
No.
It's like you get like a load of tablets in a little bag, but it's like, it's a load of ones. It's like multivitamin, magnesium. I think they actually stopped producing it. But they had like vitamin C. It was all just in the one. It was a little bag of tablets a day. And he was like, you need to be on vitamins. This way you're getting all the tightness in your muscles.
Mhm.
Does magnesium...
Not really.
What is it doing for me?
In that case,
I'm currently not taking any of it.
in that case, nothing for like muscle tightness and cramping. If someone was having cramping issues, I'd be inclined to recommend beta-alanine to prevent lactic acid accumulation.
Yeah.
Otherwise, say if it's localized, if you're getting a cramp in one spot, that's maybe dehydration, maybe underfueling, maybe overhydration. That'd be about it. Systemic cramping would happen if you have an electrolyte disturbance, like magnesium deficiencies or pure sodium deficiencies, because it wouldn't be something that just affects your calf, for example.
Yeah.
So when you look at the research on, say, cramping and electrolyte disturbances, it was originally done in factory workers. I don't know what they were doing, but it was hot. But the cramps associated with, say, electrolyte disturbances are total body cramps, not like my calf hurts or like my hamstring cramped up. That's generally something to do with strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
It can be exacerbated by being underfueled or dehydrated or overhydrated or using too much caffeine, but that's about it. Magnesium, insofar as I can see, is not really a relevant player there. However, magnesium improves sleep quality, which is where recovery happens. So if I have an athlete that's not sleeping great or they're constipated, magnesium can help with that. I will generally recommend it, but it wouldn't necessarily be one of the first things I would recommend, and definitely not for everybody.
I used to take ZMA.
Yeah, it can help sleep quality again. Is it necessary? Probably not, I would say. Unless you have like evidence of a requirement for it, I probably wouldn't bother. So we take a food first approach, Anthony. If we can address your problems with food, we definitely do.
Yeah.
If we need a supplement, then we go for it, I suppose. So they're kind of tip of the pyramid stuff.
Cherry juice.
Big fan. Sleep quality again. It's also a good antioxidant source.
You see the cyclists taking it?
Yeah.
They became big there, kind of popped onto the scene there.
Yeah, I would be a fan of the tart cherries. Kiwis do the same thing. They're also an awful lot cheaper.
Yeah, no,
So-
my kiwis do the same thing.
10% sleep quality improvement. But roughly, I don't remember the exact number, but it was around that.
Yeah, so they are things that I was looking at then. A few of them I'm using, a few of them. Ashwagandha. Is it, like you're hearing a lot of this as well? This is out in the mainstream now.
It's an adaptogen. I think you can use it like for a couple of weeks at a time if you're doing like a big block of training. I don't know, because I've never looked it up, if it's on Informed Sport. KSM 66 is, I think, the most kind of common strain of ashwagandha. Straight up, don't really know much about it. I don't recommend it readily for people.
So then essentials then. Vitamin D.
Big time.
Omega.
Omega-3, yeah.
I got a bit of a sickness there, so I went loaded on the vitamin C there last week.
Yeah.
I got that mad sinus thing. I didn't get the chest infection, but I got the sinuses. So vitamin C. What else? Then I was like, when I went down the rabbit hole of the stress fracture, vitamin K2
Yeah, really important.
to push the vitamin D.
So the way it works, I like to think of vitamin K as a calcium shepherd.
Right.
So we take vitamin D in the context of bone health, because when you have higher levels of vitamin D in your body, you absorb more calcium in your guts.
Yeah.
When the calcium gets into your body, unless you have adequate levels of vitamin K2, it just goes into your kidneys and your arteries, and some goes into your bones. Most goes into your bones.
The K2 helps push it into the bones.
Bingo. It's like a taxi driver for calcium. There you go, mate. You're in the bones now.
Yeah.
So there's an oral spray. There's a couple of them that have vitamin D3 and K2 in it.
Yeah.
Generally, for vitamin K requirements, you're aiming for your weight in micrograms per day. So in your case,
70 micrograms.
roughly, yeah, it would be kale, a cup of kale, like
So I'm big on the kale now because I dropped the spinach and I jumped
Twice
into
a
the kale.
week. That's it.
What? How much kale?
Cup twice a week.
A cup twice a week.
That's it. Yeah, I wouldn't go more than that. Spinach every day and maybe something else green also does the job.
Brussels sprouts, asparagus.
Pretty much. But a cup-sized portion of spinach and 80 grams of whatever other green you have, that'll be enough for you to meet your vitamin K requirements.
I have more of a handle on this nutrition than I thought.
You're not doing too bad.
No, doing all right.
Just too much protein, not enough carbs.
Yeah.
That's
Right,
all.
the book.
The book.
Have a look at it.
Okay.
Randox. Have you ever used them?
Not personally, but a lot of my patients have.
So I went over there when I got the stress fracture, yeah?
Yeah.
And I done the every athlete profile, got the bloods done. 2 things popped up. Cholesterol. Do Benecol do that?
10 to 12% drop in your cholesterol.
So I've been on the Benecol since LDL was high. And then they pulled me on low pulse rate. But the low pulse rate was...
44 beats per minute.
But that's not even that low for an athlete, is it?
No, in clinical settings, right?
See the book? Though, in the lens of the camera, you have it kind of up there.
Oh, sorry.
That one, behind you.
Do you want me to raise it?
No, down. There.
Down?
Yeah, there you go, Jay.
If you look in clinical settings, bradycardia or low heart rate is less than 60 beats per minute.
Yeah.
You have to tell healthcare professionals you're very well trained, or they'll think you're having like a cardiac issue.
Yeah, I said this. And I was like, it's to every athlete. Like, I went over for the athlete bloods. Like, why did they pull up that? Like,
you think they should have a
Yeah,
handle
do you
on
know what
that. I wouldn't worry about that. You're
Yeah,
just
no,
you're just in
no.
good nick. Cholesterol is a bit high.
Yeah.
That actually can happen with underfueling, believe it or not.
I cut out the chicken skin. I went from 4 eggs a day to 3 eggs a day.
How much of this do you want me to mention on camera?
Got wild.
You have a couple of problems here.
Right.
Your ApoB lipoprotein. Do you know
Yeah.
what that is?
No.
That is what's considered to be the cardiovascular disease promoting aspect of cholesterol. Yours is pretty high.
Right.
I'm looking at your LDL cholesterol here. It's 3.83. It's about 30% higher, just shy of 30% higher than we would need it to be. But your ApoB lipoprotein is also high. What I would do,
Where's that coming from?
hard to say. Saturated fat intake will be a big factor.
Which is like what, ribeye steaks and stuff?
Red meat, yeah, I'd be recommending you.
I'm down to 2 pieces of red meat a week.
Okay, are they lean pieces?
Ribeye steaks, not lean.
Probably wouldn't be having ribeye steak if I were you. I'd cut that out. White meat, fish, plant-based proteins.
So I love fish, yeah?
Yeah.
What breaks my heart about fish, salmon is my favourite food, right?
Okay.
But then you read all this and you hear all this about farmed salmon.
Yeah.
What's the gig like? Do you know what I mean?
I mean,
Because you can't get wild salmon.
no. Look, I
How are you meant to win?
I'm
I would buy the organic option. They have the organic and the...
Yeah.
But I worked on a fruit farm in Australia before and I seen the difference between organic and non-organic, and there was still things getting sprayed on them.
I'm going to get shit for this. I know nothing about the ecology part of food. Okay. We're not taught.
Yeah.
But if you can't find wild salmon and you have a cholesterol issue, it's just have whatever is there. Do you know what I mean? Like, you have to live in the real world as well. Mm-hmm. I think, of course, advocate for better environmental practices, but you also have to exist and operate within the structure that's there. We're not going to change that. So, I would have the salmon if you can.
Yeah.
Other things, quick things, get your ApoB lipoprotein and LDL cholesterol down. Benecol shots once a day forevermore until the day you die. Butter, good luck and thanks.
Good luck and thanks.
Good luck and thanks.
I did cut it right down, but good luck and thanks.
Good luck and thanks to it. Get a good strong omega-3 if you can.
I am on a good one. I have 1,500 EPA a day. Or 1,000 EPA a day at the moment.
Class.
Yeah.
Keep that going.
I bought the Kinetic ones. They have it.
I would keep going with that. Bump up your fibre intake.
So this is another thing. Fibre is probably where I lack, and that probably gets me in. I would have a lot of like a loose stomach, like, do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, and that would lead to, like, even before races, the anxiety sometimes before races would cause the stomach to go sideways.
So chia seeds.
Chia seeds.
I would work your way up to maybe 2 tablespoons a day. Those maybe 45 to 60 grams of plain mixed nuts a day, and
plain mixed nuts a day.
Horse the olive oil in, extra virgin olive oil. As much of it as
I love olive oil. I'd put it on everything. I'd put it on everything. I would love cashew nuts. I'd eat almonds. Like, I would, like, if I'm going into the shop and I need calories on the go in the taxi, I'd buy a bag of almonds and I'd eat them.
Yeah.
Just cruising around. Or a bag of cashew nuts.
Class.
Dates.
Yeah.
I would eat all them.
All that stuff really, really helps. Lots of coffee can actually make this worse as well,
So
unfortunately.
I was strung out. Phelan was on my case about it. I was flat out on the coffee. I've brought it down to 1 a day.
Here's a hack.
16 grams a day.
Buy yourself filter paper, coffee filter
I do
paper.
it. I
You
have
filter your coffee.
AeroPress in the morning.
Sound. Keep it. Not a problem.
Yeah, no bother.
Fasted training will make this worse. So
Don't do it anymore.
under fueling your train, like we could be looking at a legacy effect of poor fueling tactics here. That can also be an aspect with REDs. I don't think you have REDs, but if we have an athlete with REDs or they have a lot of those symptoms or under fueling in general, the inflammatory response that happens as a result of that can raise LDL cholesterol. So it's not uncommon to see athletes who you would consider at risk of REDs or athletes with eating disorders to have really high LDL cholesterol levels.
Yeah.
That's really common. It's expected, actually.
Right.
In lay population, a person with malnutrition often has high cholesterol, despite the fact that they're not eating enough. So it is a legitimate cardiac risk factor.
Yeah.
But brass tacks, more fiber, more unsaturated fats, less saturated fat, more antioxidants. So maybe the easiest thing you could do, throw the seeds into your porridge in the morning, have the nuts while you're driving around, make a smoothie, orange juice, a cup of berries, couple of oats in there, maybe some extra seeds again, spinach, a couple of leafy greens, horse it in, see how you get on. I'll send you some notes on things to do, and I'd like you to get your cholesterol checked in 3 months.
So I've put in for this. So with that, you get a follow-up test.
Good.
And I was trying to get it done before you came in because then I had bang on data.
Yeah.
That was in April.
Ah, okay.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well,
and since then, I've lowered the butter. Haven't cut it out completely. I definitely would be more conscious of it.
Yeah.
I've lowered the eggs from 4 a day to probably. I'm not. Sometimes I'd probably have 3 a day, 4 times a week.
Eggs and cheese are actually not that relevant here.
Okay.
You can keep those. It's more so butter, kind of deep fried things.
Deep fried. Wouldn't really eat much deep fried.
I didn't think so, but
wouldn't really I would if I went out and I got a chicken burger with a missus or something. Do you know what I mean? But I would even really do that. If I go out, I would eat a Bunsen, or I would have I try and eat clean even when I go out. It's usually a pasta dinner or something.
My guess is what we're looking at here is a legacy effect of how you were fueling your training. That would be my assumption, and maybe a bit too much butter as well. But it'd be a combination of those two things. But I don't think you have to be worried. Your triglycerides are class. Your HDL cholesterol is nice and high. They're very protective effects. Your BMI is good. You mentioned you were on iron earlier on.
No.
No.
I was eating too much spinach, hoping I would get high iron.
Ah, okay. So in April, if you had shown me this, I would say yes, take iron. See that ferritin count? It's 44.84.
Yeah.
We wanted for an athlete to be above 50.
Right.
So anything less than, depending on where you go, but 35 or less is considered deficient. 20 or less, you kind of, it's iron deficiency, non-anemia. 12 or less, you're anemic. I might have suggested that you take some iron there.
Right.
I'd imagine it's better now because you're fueling better and maybe training a bit less, so it could bounce up. But people shouldn't take iron to prevent iron deficiency. You should only take it to treat it. Do you know why?
Why?
3% of the Irish population have what's called hemochromatosis.
Which is?
Genetic condition that makes you very unable to metabolize iron, so it just builds up in your body, which can cause liver damage and nerve damage.
Right.
Really bad for you. So we never supplement prophylactically is the term. We treat iron deficiency. So if you haven't done a blood test and you just think, I could do it an iron supplement, maybe hold off on that one.
Yeah.
Get your bloods checked first.
Yeah.
Let me see what else we have here. Your kidneys aren't great, Nick. Calcium is good. Your magnesium is fine.
Yeah.
Phosphates are good. Good. I've never interpreted bloods on camera before.
Yeah. Those are everything.
All this looks fine. Cool. It's cool. Your levels are fine now, but something for you to know. You know, if you do a blood test the day after a race or a really tough training session,
Day after, yeah.
some of your liver enzymes could be through the roof. Now, yours were fine as it happens, but it's not uncommon, or it is known that those liver enzymes can be really elevated the day after a tough workout. For anyone, I guess, for a reference, your vitamin D levels are very high.
So what happened was, now I don't know if this had an effect, but when I was going for this blood, when I got the stress fracture, I was like loading up on everything then.
Yeah, okay.
I was like, so it was probably a week before I was throwing everything into me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Trying to get ahead of the curve. And then I went in and done a blood test and I was like, the levels are going to be through the roof. And anyway, but the rheumatologist said, no, it would have took a while for them to kick in and raise or whatever.
It would, in fairness. Testosterone is good. Yeah, it's, I mean, not bad. Just the cholesterol.
Just the cholesterol.
Taking a look at that.
But the way you said butter, goodbye and see you later, that was like...
Yeah.
So what is the dangers of the high cholesterol? A banger? Heart attack?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty
Is
much.
that what you see these people of, like, he never drank or smoke, he was very fit and healthy, boom.
Can be. So I suppose what's cool about Randox, I've no affiliation with Randox, by the way. I have to say that. I do appreciate the rigour that they use.
Yeah. Now, when I brought that to the doctor, she was like, this was a very thorough blood test.
It is. You couldn't do this with the HSE or with your GP because this would cost like €1,000 to do. What was I going to say? If you do standard bloods and they do total LDL, HDL and triglycerides, they might not do the ApoB lipoprotein. They often don't. They generally don't, in fact. So you could have normal everything, but your ApoB could be high. You might not know it. Or maybe you just don't go to the doctor that much and you don't know what your blood pressure is like. Those two are massive risk factors for, say, long-term cardiovascular disease risk. Arterial calcification will be another aspect of that, which is why it is important to get things like vitamin K into your diet. It can offset and prevent that, as can magnesium supplementation, because that happens over a lifetime. Calcification, the plaque build-up, our crash studies.
Yeah.
I was looking at them in my bachelor's degree. We were talking about, say, calcification and plaque build-up. It happens over the course of a lifetime.
Yeah.
In America, sometimes they do autopsies when there's car crashes. American children have plaque build-up in their hearts.
Yeah.
That's how we know it happens over the course of a lifetime. Your dietary decisions on a day-to-day basis, it kicks off that process from day dot. So how you manage risk factors like cholesterol, blood pressure, it actually makes a huge difference for, say, where you end up when you're 50, 60. That's where you get loads of these pricks on social media. They're generally not 50 or 60, but they say things like, I don't eat vegetables, I drink and I smoke and I'm fine. It's like, yeah, you're fine for now.
Yeah.
Because it has what's called a latency period where the issue is building to the point where it reaches a threshold whereby you cannot pump blood through your heart anymore, or then you get a cardiovascular event. It's 50, 60 years in the making for most people.
Right.
So you and I can feel bulletproof now because we're roughly the same age, but still got to take care of this stuff.
100%. So the cholesterol I need to get on top of.
100%. Yeah. Let me know how that pans out when you get it rechecked.
I will, definitely.
I'll send you some pointers, things to do, and we get it sorted.
So then, anybody that wants to get on top of that health and needs help with sports and sports nutrition and dietary needs, get a good blood test done like this. And get on to Evan. Yeah. And he'll give you a dig out. Yeah,
well, it's something I'd recommend, before a patient comes to me.
Yeah.
I generally ask them, have you done any recent blood tests? If they haven't, I'll write them a letter to bring to their GP and they'll get some things done. It's not as thorough as that, but we get the important things done. And oftentimes that actually becomes the cornerstone of the conversation, because you can't feel that you have high LDL cholesterol in the same way that you couldn't necessarily feel that you're mildly iron deficient. There are no tangible symptoms there.
Yeah.
It's called a subclinical. It's subclinical. You don't know.
Yeah.
A clinical thing would be like you have a crippling migraine that you go to A&E with. It's unignorable. These kind of more salient, quiet things like blood pressure is a good example. It can be a problem for years and you just don't know.
No, it was a bit of a scare for me, and I like that. My missus was on to me, and she was always hounding me, go and get a blood test. She would always say, "You're looking a bit yellow around the eyes, and all. You're run yourself into the ground."
Your liver is sound.
Right.
No, you're fine.
So she was like that, but she was like, go and do, and I wouldn't. I was like, yeah, I'm grand, I'm bomb-proof, and then like that when that happened.
Yeah.
I jumped on it, and then that all popped up, the DEXA, everything else, and I was happy to pay the $1 and find out the info that I needed.
Yeah. you know, it's important to know where you're at. It can be frightening to take a look. Like, I mean, I'm on medication for a stomach condition,
Yeah.
and I might be forever. And that took me a while to get my head around. Cause like, but I'm so young and healthy,
Yeah.
you know. But if I ignored that, I wouldn't be healthy.
Yeah.
And I think just accept where you're at. Those are your circumstances. It's just some extra boxes you have to tick so that you can function and do what you love. Or in your case, it's competing, it's
Yeah.
training, it's making content. In my case, it's I just trying to get back to exercise and running a clinic and being a dad.
Yeah.
So we just tick the boxes we have to tick, and the blood work, knowing where you're at from a health perspective, it can really focus on, well, what is important for me to take, and maybe what are some things I need to be careful with. And that's kind of where tailored advice comes in. And for what it's worth, that's something you do need professional help with. Not just you, everybody. Nobody can help themselves with this stuff, even if you're the most objective or well-educated person in the world. If you
Yeah.
have a health issue or you're trying to get a wrap on yourself, it has to come from an external source, because you'll bullshit yourself.
100%.
I have a dietitian
Yeah.
that I work with who kind of keeps me
In
on the
check.
straight and narrow. I have a counselor and a therapist that I work with, so I don't totally lose the run on myself.
Yeah.
I go to my GP pretty frequently. He calls
Yeah,
me
man.
Ev. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
I have to do all those things, or I'd be an absolute fucking shit show.
Yeah.
But people see a healthcare professional, which is what I am now. You know, I'm not an athlete anymore. I'm a
Yeah.
healthcare professional, and they assume, wow, he just must be so healthy.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, I get it.
I had a dairy milk on the way here in the car.
Evan, nice one for coming in here, bro.
Yeah,
And
no,
having a look at that
anytime.
nice one.
Yeah, happy to
Fair
come.
play to you.
Cheers,
Sound, bro.
man. Thanks for having me on.